My name's Michael. I'm 30 now. But this story started a few years back when my life hit a rough patch. After a painful breakup, I left Atlanta and moved to a quiet little rural town called Northfield in Georgia. I didn't have many choices, so I moved into an old cabin my uncle left behind after he passed. It sat on a patch of land just outside of town, 12 acres, mostly pine and overgrowth. Peaceful, isolated, and at first, kind of a relief. The house was ancient. The floorboards always creaked, and the windows never seemed to seal properly. No matter how high I cranked the heater, the place always felt a little too cold. But it was mine, and more importantly, it was rent-free. The first week was uneventful. I cleaned, fixed up a few things, spent my nights on the porch listening to the wind stir through the tall trees. Occasionally a fox or owl would break the silence, but it was calm. Until the seventh night. It was around 1:20 a.m. when I first heard the whistling. I had just crawled into bed. The tune was slow and eerie, not quite a melody, just a few rising and falling notes. Dissonant, off-key. At first, I thought it was someone walking through the woods, maybe a hunter or a drunk heading home. But it returned the next night. Same time, closer. I stepped outside with a flashlight, scanned the tree line. Nothing. No footprints. No broken branches, just the tune drifting away. After a few more nights of this, I called the sheriff's department. A deputy came out, old guy named Collins. When I explained what was going on, he didn't look surprised, just gave me a long look and said, "Funny thing, your uncle used to call us about the same thing every spring. Said some whistler liked to hang around. We never found a trace." That hit me hard. I never knew. My uncle never said a word about it in his letters. Collins told me to keep everything locked up after dark. I was already doing that. I even stacked furniture against the doors. But the whistling, it kept creeping closer. One night, I swear it came from just outside the bedroom window. Another night, right by the shed. Then under the house. I swear I heard it coming through the floor vents. I finally checked the attic, thinking maybe my uncle left something behind. I found a metal box filled with old notebooks. His handwriting was shaky, but he'd written pages about the man who whistles. He said it happened every spring for more than a decade. He thought it was someone watching him, waiting. That night, I stayed up with a shotgun I barely knew how to use. Right on cue, 1:17 a.m., the whistling started again. But this time, it was coming from inside, from the hallway. I froze. The house was still, except for the soft, chilling tune echoing through the corridor. Step by step, it grew louder. I stood up, aimed a shotgun, and yelled, "Who's there?" Silence. I turned on the light. Empty hallway. 2 nights later, I was woken up not by whistling, but by a slow knock. 3 of them, from inside, from a back door. Then footsteps. 1, 2. The hallway light flickered and went out. I stepped out of the bedroom, heart racing. At the end of the hallway stood a figure, tall, motionless, dressed in black. Their face pale, expressionless. They stared at me. I raised the shotgun, hands trembling, and said, "Don't move." They didn't, not at first. Then, they turned and sprinted toward the front door. I fired into the darkness and ran after them, but they were gone. The next morning, the sheriff came back. The front door was unlocked. Nothing taken, but someone had been inside. Collins looked grim, told me to change the locks, and maybe consider not staying there anymore. I packed my bags that afternoon, moved in with my brother across the state line. We put the house up for sale. I haven't been back since, but every spring, around 1:17 in the morning, I find myself lying awake, waiting, listening. I'm 16 now, but for the first 8 years of my life, I lived in a rural village that barely showed up on maps. It was tucked away in a valley, surrounded by thick forests and hills, with maybe 80 or 90 people living there, tops. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone's dog by name, and where strangers were noticed immediately. Back then, it wasn't uncommon for kids to roam freely through the streets, fields, and tree lines without supervision. My best friend Julian and I were practically feral by city standards. We ran barefoot in the summer, built forts in the woods, and could name every car in the village just by the sound of its engine. One afternoon during a record-breaking heat wave, Julian and I got it in our heads to get soda. We were desperate, tongues dry, sunburn starting to settle in. We didn't have money, of course, so we wandered around asking if anyone needed help with chores in exchange for a few coins. That's when we passed by this old cottage at the end of a narrow dirt lane. It belonged to a woman named Miss Bellamy. She was well into her 80s, always dressed in layers, even in the heat, and people mostly kept their distance. Not because she was mean, but because she had this presence. Quiet, watchful, strange. I remember my mother saying she'd been widowed since the 1970s and had no kids. She kept to herself, tending to her garden and collecting herbs. Miss Bellamy called us over with a slow, crooked wave. Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't spoken in days. "You two look like you're melting," she said, smiling without showing teeth. "Help me gather some mint from the forest patch, and I'll give you enough coins for a dozen sodas." We nodded eagerly. She handed us 2 old canvas sacks and pointed us toward the edge of the woods behind her house. "Only take the mint that grows in the circle," she added. "You'll know it when you see it." Julian and I laughed about the circle thing. We thought she was just being quirky. But when we got into the woods, deeper than we'd ever gone before, we did find something strange. A clearing shaped in a perfect ring, with darker, greener mint growing all around its edge. Inside the circle, the grass was yellowed and flat. No mint, no flowers, not even bugs. It was oddly silent. We didn't step inside. Something about it made our skin crawl. We spent over an hour picking mint from the edges of the ring. The sun was setting behind the trees when we heard footsteps behind us. Heavy, slow, deliberate. We turned around, expecting to see Miss Bellamy, but no one was there. Julian whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded. My mouth was dry, and not just from the heat anymore. Then we both saw it. A tall figure standing just beyond the trees. Not walking, just standing, still as stone. They were wearing all black, with a wide-brimmed hat that cast their face in complete shadow. No movement, no sound, just watching. We dropped the sacks and ran as fast as our legs would carry us. Branches whipped against our faces, and we didn't stop until we hit the edge of Miss Bellamy's property. She was waiting for us on the porch, seemingly unsurprised by our panic. "You left the sacks behind," she said flatly. "But no matter. You saw him, didn't you?" Julian asked, "Who was that?" Miss Bellamy turned and went inside without answering. When she came back, she handed us 2 cold sodas and said, "Don't go back to that circle. Not unless you want him to follow you home." We never went back. A year later, Miss Bellamy passed away. Her house sat abandoned for a while, then someone from out of town bought it. But here's the thing. 2 months after they moved in, they disappeared without a trace. The house has been boarded up ever since. Julian and I don't talk about that day anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I remember that figure in the woods. And I still wonder if we stepped too close to the circle without realizing it. If he ever found a way to follow us back. When I was about 10, my family moved to a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. Rows of old brick homes, maple-lined streets, and a nature trail that twisted through the nearby woods. It was the kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen, but something did. It started during the first week of autumn. The trail near our home had a reputation, mostly harmless. Local kids told stories about people going missing there, but adults always brushed them off as urban legends. Still, there was one story everyone agreed on, regardless of age: don't follow the whistling. It was always just called that, the whistling. I didn't think much of it. I was a skeptic even at 10. But one Sunday afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I had gone out riding my bike along the path. Sunlight still golden, the air crisp with the smell of dry leaves. I stopped at a bend in the trail where the woods grew thicker and darker. That's when I heard it, a faint, slow, whistled tune. It sounded like someone trying to mimic a lullaby, but doing it all wrong. Notes off, timing broken, like a song played backward. I remember freezing in place. The sound wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It drifted through the trees, seemingly from no clear direction. I told myself it was just someone messing around. But as I turned to go, the whistling stopped, then started again, closer. I pedaled home fast, heart pounding, and didn't tell anyone. But the next night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to it again, this time outside my window. A single, broken tune, slow and deliberate, whistled by someone standing just beyond the reach of the porch light. I stayed in bed, frozen, clutching my blanket. I didn't move until the sound stopped. The next morning, I checked outside. There were no footprints in the frost, no signs of anyone. That became the pattern. Every few nights, always after midnight, I'd hear it outside my window or faintly through the walls. Always the same jagged lullaby. My parents thought I was having bad dreams. I stopped sleeping. My grades slipped. I didn't go near the trail anymore. Then one night, everything escalated. I woke up to tapping, 3 slow knocks on my bedroom window. I sat up in bed, terrified, and there it was again. Whistle, 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 knock, knock, knock. I don't know what possessed me, but I crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. What I saw still haunts me. There was a figure standing in the yard, not moving, not breathing, just watching. They wore a long black coat, tattered at the ends. Their head was tilted too far to the side, like a doll with a broken neck. And they were whistling, but their lips weren't moving. The sound was coming from them, somehow, but their mouth stayed closed. I backed away slowly, heart hammering, and crawled under the bed. I stayed there until the sun came up. When I finally dared to check again, the yard was empty. The next day, I broke down and told my parents everything. My dad went out and installed motion lights, even a camera. But the camera never caught anything. The lights never turned on. Eventually, the whistling stopped. Just like that, we moved out 2 years later. I've never heard it since. But here's the part one don't talk about often. Last year, a neighbor from that street reached out to me on Facebook. She remembered me as the kid who never smiled. She said her youngest son had started having trouble sleeping. He'd been hearing something strange at night. She sent me a voice memo. I didn't even play the whole thing. I didn't need to. The first 3 seconds were enough. Whistle, whistle, whistle.